Joined on the broadcast by Mike Boyle, the voice of the Spokane Chiefs. Mike, tell us what the expectations are in Spokane. I see the Chiefs haven't been to round 2 in 2013. Are fans getting antsy there, perhaps?
They're certainly getting a little anxious to get to the playoffs after missing it for the first time in 10 years last season. I think the expectation is that this club should make the playoffs and hopefully get at least to the second round this year. The club started 3-0, 4-1. But have dropped 3 in a row to Portland in their division. And so there's some questions with this club right now, and they're heading into a tough stretch of the schedule, get ready to play the number 1 team in the CHL, Victoria, in their next game. And then they've got Tri-City, a team they lost 10-12 to last year. And then they got Moose Jaw, who's ranked number 9 in the latest CHL poll. I think this club's going to find out in a big hurry what they're all about.
Looking at your team, a lot of fans might recognize the name Kailer Yamamoto, who was first-round draft pick of the Edmonton Oilers and has cracked the Edmonton Oilers roster. Is there any thought he could come back? And tell us about the impact he's had there, because not just was he a star player for your team, but he's from the area. Has that spurred additional interest and growth in Spokane?
Oh, no doubt. Spokane's had a pretty good tradition of turning out local kids that have been not only playing for the Chiefs, but stars for Spokane. And you look back at Tyler Johnson and what he did. Derek Ryan, who currently plays for the Carolina Hurricanes, is another one. They've had some good success locally here over the last decade or so. Kailer has certainly been a huge addition to this club since he came on as a 16-year-old rookie. And I think he's showing this year. He just turned 19 last week. He's more than capable of playing at the highest level. He's been able to crack the Oilers lineup. Whether he stays there, I think, is a big question mark. He hasn't seen a lot of ice time as far as each game that he's played. He's usually been going about 7 to 8 minutes a contest. So there's a feeling, I think, within the organization that he'll be back sooner than later. I would imagine that the Oilers will probably give him a good look probably through the rest of October, but I would imagine that come November, he probably will make his way back to Spokane at that point.
Perhaps could see him skating for the red, white, and blue at the World Juniors, too, I would assume, if he's back. Also wanted to ask about Hudson Ellenok, third-round draft pick of the Carolina Hurricanes, because longtime NHL fans will remember his father, Pat, was a bit of a star with the Winnipeg Jets. Tell us about his progression going forward.
Hudson has been one of those players that he has a high ceiling, and it's kind of been an up and down journey for him. And this season's been the same way. Started off really strong, but over the last week has kind of struggled a little bit with his game offensively. I think he's one of those kids that Carolina has some hope for. But the fact that they returned him to junior rather than play him at the American Hockey League level, I think should send a signal to him that he needs to work on some things. He's certainly got the opportunity in Spokane to be a top-line guy, be a guy that can carry this club. Right now he's third on the club in scoring, but he's been in a little bit of a point slump and hasn't scored in the last 3 games. I think he's just a kid that needs to figure it out in a big hurry, and I'm talking about his 20-year-old season, because I think the Hurricanes basically saying that they're sending him to junior for his 20-year-old year are saying that you've got this year to show us that you're worth signing, or else he's going to become a free agent at the end of the season.
Wanted to touch on yourself as a broadcaster, because we discussed this before I hit record. Also broadcast for the Spokane Indians baseball team. Tell us about the differences between broadcasting baseball and hockey, and also which team of those two dominates in the marketplace there in Spokane.
Well, that's a good question as far as which team dominates, because it just depends on the season. The Indians just released that they broke their all-time attendance record this season. In 38 home games, they drew nearly 200,000 fans, over 5,100 a game, which is the most that the 115 years of the franchise has ever averaged. It's obviously a very, very big item in Spokane, but they only play from mid-June until the beginning of September. So the rest of the year, they're kind of in the background as far as rooting interest is concerned. There's no question in Spokane that Gonzaga University basketball is number 1. Washington State football, probably number 2. And then after that, you probably get to the Chiefs, because the Chiefs are more of a year-round thing. The fact they begin in September, don't end usually until April. Much more of a year-round team to root for. The club has a big hockey following. The city of Spokane has had a great tradition of hockey for the last 80-plus years. I think that the Chiefs, they got probably a little bigger following than the Indians as far as year-round. But, boy, for those 3 months in summertime, it's definitely an Indians town here in Spokane. For me, to a difference between hockey and baseball, I've always told people that hockey, I feel more like an auctioneer, because the action's going so quick. It's a very high, intense sport. And I like that adrenaline rush of calling games, because everything in a game means so much. Baseball, they play every night. I do 76 games in 79 evenings, and it's more of a grind. The guys that are able to survive mentally and just get through it, I think, are the best teams that are able to move along. It's a lot of fun to call baseball, though, because it's a lot more laid back. You have a much more bigger opportunity to tell stories and show your knowledge of the game. And the chess element, as I call it, of baseball, I really enjoy because there's a lot of strategy that goes on between pitches that the average fan doesn't know or see, which I just love to talk about. It's been the one thing that's attracted me to baseball since I was a kid, is that there's so much that goes on, so much that can change with each pitch, and you never see the same game twice. And you can watch baseball for 50 years like I have, and you'll see something different at some point that happens. It's kind of a unique sport in that respect.
Very true, and we have a lot of our listeners who are obviously hockey fans, but obviously a lot of them are baseball fans as well, and we'll appreciate hearing that insight. Thanks for this, Mike. Best of luck to you and the Chiefs going forward.
I appreciate it. Thank you again, Patrick.
That's Mike Boyle, voice of the Spokane Chiefs in the WHL. You're listening to Carstar, Cape Breton Scream Eagles Hockey, 1270 CJCB.